Okay. So, hello students. Students, we are on to the fourth unit of chapter number 7, which also, dear students, happens to be the last unit of this chapter. I will be explaining you each and every concept like the previous classes, and we are going to have a discussion. Any doubts? Please feel free to ask. Let's go, everyone. Sir, the name of the unit is what? Fiscal policy. So, students, the first question is, sir, what is fiscal policy? Any policy of the government. I repeat my statement. Any policy of the government that deals with one of these three things. Any policy of the government that deals with any one of these three things is the fiscal policy. Any policy of the government. Sir, what are that three things? Number one, taxation. So any decision of the government related to taxation comes under fiscal policy. Number one, any decision of the government pertaining to public expenditure, that is the money that the government is going to spend in the economy, again comes under fiscal policy. And the third thing is that government borrows money from the public. Government borrows money from the public from time to time to achieve various economic goals. That is also fiscal policy. So basically, any changes in these three areas, in which three areas, sir? Area number one, taxation. Area number two, public expenditure. And area number three, borrowings. Any decision of the government pertaining to any of these three areas comes under fiscal policy. The goal of these three things is to influence aggregate demand, output, and employment. What do they affect? Demand, output, and employment. So any strategic decision of the government related to these three is fiscal policy. The surprising thing is, for the next 2 hours that we are going to have our class, I'll be discussing these three only. You know why? Because that is only fiscal policy. Okay. Now, it's very important in this light to highlight the Keynesian perspective. As per Keynes, as per Keynes, recession, inflation, or any business cycle movement takes place due to aggregate demand. So if there is more demand, investors will invest more. More people are going to get jobs, right? If there is more demand, more people are going to get jobs. So an important MCQ question is, I repeat students, that anyone, anyone who is attending this class should be focusing on taking the knowledge home, because MCQs are coming. All this has been extracted from your ICAI study material only. So as it is there with you, and you have to read the ICAI material. I am not preparing you for, that 2 or 3 mark question, define fiscal policy. So it is useless and it is illogical to jot it down. Just pay attention, everybody. Okay. Coming back to the point. Any policy of the government that focuses on three areas: taxation of the government, government expenditure, and government borrowings. As per Keynes, what causes inflation, recession, or any movement in the business cycle? It is caused by aggregate demand. Aggregate demand. So this is important. As per Keynes, what is responsible? Aggregate demand. This is an MCQ question. Okay. Students, next question is, sir, what is the goal of? Sir, what is the goal of fiscal policy? So here it goes, students. The objectives of fiscal policy are full employment. Sir, what is employment? Full employment means anybody who wants jobs. Full employment means anybody who wants jobs gets jobs. जिसे काम चाहिए उसे काम मिल रहा है. Subject to the condition that they are able and willing. They are able to do the job and they are willing to do the job. Able means they are capable. Willing means they have the intention. If both are there and you are getting the work also, you are getting the job also, then students, we can say that you are in the realm of what? Full employment. Okay, understood, sir. Next, price stability. Students, it is common sense that there will be some fluctuation in prices. Say, suppose some time ago, the price of petrol was 83. Let's say it becomes 83.5. Let's say it becomes 84. It is not the cause of worry. It is not the cause of worry. The cause of worry is that if a petrol from 83 goes to 93 overnight or in a week or two, now there is a cause of concern. Now there is something you should be worried about. There is something wrong going on now. Now there is something wrong going on, friends, because some fluctuations will take place. Everybody in the economy has this knowledge, but the fluctuation should be within limits. Price stability points implies that the fluctuation stays within limits. There is no excess fluctuation, you see, that is observed. You would try to avoid that. One would try to avoid that. Excess fluctuations. Then we have economic growth. Another objective. Economic growth is yet another objective, students. Economic growth means that the per capita income keeps growing year on year. Per capita income keeps growing year on year. Economic growth means per capita income keeps growing year on year. Got it, friends? That it keeps climbing. Okay. And finally, students, it is equitable distribution of income and wealth. That the rich does not become very rich and the poor does not become very poor. Even if the rich becomes very rich, the poor should not be adversely affected. Their position should improve. At least the poor's position should improve. Rich are already better off, so there is no doubt about that. But the position of the poor should at least improve. That is what is written here. Equitable distribution of income and wealth. Let me explain you in a more subtle way. Suppose that for rich there is no tax and for poor also there is no tax. Now there is the problem. Why? The rich needs to be taxed. Why? Otherwise, how will the poor grow? How will the poor grow? Sir, logical. That is what I'm trying to say. So objectives of fiscal policy are full employment, price stability, economic growth, and equitable distribution of income and wealth. Got it, sir. Got it, sir. So these are the four objectives. Sir, what could be an MCQ from this position? One MCQ could be, which of the following is an objective of fiscal policy? 3. Institute will give points which are irrelevant, useless. And 1 point institute will pinch in that is relevant. If you haven't studied this 4 points, how are you going to answer? Tell me. How do you plan to answer? So there it goes. Full employment, price stability, economic growth, and equitable distribution of income and wealth. Got it, sir. Got it? Right, sir. Now, if we talk about types of fiscal policy, students, We have expansionary policy and we have contractionary policy. We have expansionary fiscal policy and we have contractionary fiscal policy. Now, what is what, sir? कौन सा क्या है? Please explain us, sir. So, let me elaborate it for you. Expansionary fiscal policy, when is it undertaken? Expansionary fiscal policy will be undertaken when the government wants people to have more money in their hands. When will the government want more money in the hands of the people? During recession or during inflation? During recession. Because you see, when there is a situation of recession, there is low consumption going on. People are not spending on consumption. People are not spending on consumption. So, when there is low level of consumption, then expansionary fiscal policy is pursued. When there is low level of consumption, that is during recession. Just a moment. Huh. That is during recession, everybody. Here, the government will increase its expenditure. Why? Because when the government spends money, class, when the government spends money, let's say on construction of a bridge, let's say on construction of a museum, when this work is being done, somebody is getting paid, some construction company and its workers are getting paid. Now they will use this money to spend somewhere else. So the demand in the economy has increased. During recession, you want to boost demand. During recession, you want to reduce or boost demand. During recession, you want to boost demand. One thing. The other thing is you reduce taxes, because when you reduce taxes, class, pay attention everybody. When you reduce taxes, your income reduces. You means the government. Government's income reduces, but people are left with more money. Say, initially there was 100 rupees of income and people used to give 30 rupees tax. So their purchasing power was restricted to 70 rupees. Let's say the tax rate reduces. So if there is 100 rupees income and there is only 10 rupees of tax, now people are left with how much? Now people are left with 90 rupees. Since people are left with 90 rupees, that means they have more spending power. That means they have more purchasing power. Sir, understood. So aggregate demand increases. When? During recession. Got it, sir. Though I have given you the gist, but I am sure the gist was clear. Understood, everybody? Right, sir. Then, students, you have the contractionary policy. In contractionary policy, what happens is the government expenditure reduces. I repeat, the government expenditure reduces. During contractionary policy, government expenditure goes down. Class, when the government expenditure has gone down, try and understand. जब गवर्नमेंट का एक्सपेंडिचर ही कम हो गया, when the expenditure of the government has reduced, students, why they have reduced the expenditure? Because you have to understand, when is contractionary policy pursued? During situation of inflation. You see, when there is inflation in the economy, when there is inflation in the economy, prices are high for the commodities. Prices are high for the commodities. During which time period? During inflationary period. So when prices are high for the commodities, during inflation, of course, it is because everybody has money. Try to understand why inflation happened. You will understand why the government does this. See, let me explain it to you in a simple manner. Suppose there is this commodity class, okay? First, I am explaining why inflation occurred. Then you will understand the solution behind the same. Okay? Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Why inflation occurred, all right? See, friends, pay attention. Friends, pay attention. Say, let's say that there is this commodity, it is a briefcase. Okay, it is a briefcase. It's a very limited edition briefcase. Limited edition. This is a limited edition briefcase. Okay. Suppose its price was 5,000 and there is only one piece left. Trying to explain it in a more simplified way. Now there are 10 buyers. You see, what will the seller do? Seller will increase the price of the briefcase because wants are unlimited, but the supply of briefcase is limited. Just like this limited edition briefcase, students, any resource in the economy is limited only. Any resource in the economy, much like this limited edition briefcase, is limited only. Okay, so the resource is limited, but the buyers, the wants are unlimited. So price is rising. Why? Because everybody is having money to buy that briefcase. Naturally, the price will go. The price will go up. Students, whichever city you live in, that city or district, whatever it is, has many small parts. Some place you will see the square foot rate of a flat is, let's say, 4,000. Some place it is 7,000. Some place it is 20,000 per square foot. Some place it is 1 lakh per square foot. Why so? Because the builder knows that if this kind of thing I offer at 5,000 per square foot, then there will be adequate amount of demand. At 3,000, there will be excess demand. Understood? They try to match the demand and supply. So inflation is taking place when supply is limited, but demand is unlimited. So why is demand unlimited? Because everybody is having money. So when everybody is having money, how do you control inflation? Reduce money with the public. It doesn't mean you rob their money. It doesn't mean that you rob them of their money. No, 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 no. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to convey here is, friends, that if you witness that everybody has money and you want to reduce their money, you increase the taxes. When you increase the taxes, people will have less money. Less money means lesser demand. Thus, inflation is brought under control to some extent. Because there are many factors affecting inflation, not only just the excess demand. So yes, at least the demand component will be taken care of in that scenario. Friends, I hope it's crystal clear, everybody. Friends, I hope it's crystal clear, everybody. Now, instruments of fiscal policy. Everybody, instruments of fiscal policy. Number one instrument is government expenditure. Number one instrument is government expenditure. Pay attention, everyone. If government expenditure increases, pay attention, class. If government expenditure increases, people will have more money in their hands. And if people will have more money in their hands, demand is going to increase. So if government expenditure increases, demand is going to increase. It can be on public works, it can be on welfare schemes. So there is a multiplier effect which amplifies its impact. Instrument of fiscal policy. Now we are discussing in detail. Understood though? So what is the first point that we discussed? Government expenditure. Naturally, if government expenditure is more, people are having more money in their hands. Okay. The earlier example that I gave in a simplified way was only construction of bridges example. or museum? What if government hires more people in the defense? Is it not government expenditure? Tell me, class, are people not getting jobs here? Is it not government expenditure? Are people not getting jobs? Yes, sir, they do. Second point. Third point. Just a minute, class. Some technical glitch has taken place. Yes, okay. Government hiring defense forces. So more people are getting jobs. The youth get into defense. More of them are getting money. They are getting paid for their defense work. Government is bringing in more schools. This is also government expenditure. When government is bringing up more schools, naturally it means more job for teachers. Are you understanding? Government is setting up more research institutes. More research institutes. When government is setting up more research institutes, people with PhD, people with PhD are benefited in that case. Yes or no? Yes, sir. So, sir, understanding, sir. Understood, everybody? Now, this one is the government expenditure. Now, this one is the government expenditure. This one is the government expenditure. Got it, everyone? Second point, shall I? Yes, sir. Second point, shall I explain? Right, sir. Next is taxation. Next is taxation. Taxation. Please try and understand what taxation implies. What taxation implies. Here, by the way, here, when they say taxation, they are trying to highlight which point. Can you tell me? Taxation here means direct tax, mostly direct tax. It doesn't mean only direct tax, but mostly they are talking about direct tax as an example. To reduce inequalities, what is done? What kind of taxation is used? Progressive taxation. A very important question. To reduce inflation, what is done? Progressive taxation. Now you all tell me, students, progressive taxation. That is in, first of all, what is progressive taxation? Let's say, for example, in our country, say for example, let's say, suppose I am giving an example. This is not the real rate. Suppose 0 to 12 lakh, you don't pay any tax. Suppose 12 lakh to 16 lakh, you pay 5% tax. 16 lakh to 20 lakhs, you pay 10% tax. Suppose a structure is proposed like this. 20 lakh to 24 lakh, you pay 15% tax. And beyond that, you pay 30% tax. Suppose a structure comes up like this. Sir, आप क्या कहना चाह रहे हो? What are you trying to say? My dear friends, I'm trying to say, or I'm trying to ask you is that this is progressive taxation, where as your income levels are rising, your tax rates are also rising. As your income levels are rising, your tax rates are also rising. And whatever the money the government is benefiting from these taxes, government is utilizing towards helping the lower middle class, the poorer class. This is reduction of inequality. My question to you is, let's say you are giving an exam and they are asking that, sir, there are two types of fiscal policy, right? Expansionary and contractionary. Their question is, what they're asking is, progressive tax is what kind of policy? Expansionary or contractionary? What will your answer be? Progressive taxation is an expansionary policy or a contractionary policy? Think carefully and answer. You have to think of the definition. As your income increases, your tax rate increases. So when the government is increasing tax rate, government is reducing the money that is available with you. Whenever government is reducing the money available with you, it is naturally a contractionary fiscal policy. Students, the ability of think will only come if you actually try to think. There is no use mugging up in foundation economics. It is irrelevant. You have to understand the concept that tax rate has increased. So people are left with less money in their hands. When people are left with less money in their hands, money supply has reduced. That is a contractionary fiscal policy. Game over. Third tool is public debt. Public debt. Public debt. Public debt. What is public debt? Students, it is the borrowings of the government. Students, it is the borrowings of the government. It is the borrowings of the government. Students, it is the borrowings of the government. Got it? Right, sir. Got it, sir. Now, you all have understood these are the borrowings of the government. Okay, you all have understood this, right? Now, my dear friends, if you borrow more, if you borrow more, if you means the government borrows more by giving public a kind of, you know, a bait. It's not a bait exactly. Let's say government wants to reduce money in the economy. So RBI brings in government bonds that offers 11% interest for 5 years. Now RBI is issuing. The highest monetary authority is selling bonds. Can anybody be more secured? No. 11% interest on bonds. You cannot name me one another instrument that gives you 11%. You cannot name another instrument. Without risk, I mean. So naturally, you will put all your money in this particular thing, particular venture. So borrowing absorbs purchasing power. Borrowing absorbs purchasing power. And repayment increases money supply. When you repay the money with the to the public, when you repay the money to the public, borrowing absorbs purchase power. And when you repay the money to the public, it increases money supply with them. Repayment increases, dear students, money supply with them. So naturally their demand increases. There means the public's demand. So borrowing is a contractionary fiscal policy. You can write it down. Borrowing, because it reduces money with the public. Whatever reduces money with the public is contractionary. Whatever increases money with the public is expansionary. That is common sense. The name itself says. So borrowing absorbs purchasing power. So borrowing is a contractionary policy. But when public's money is repaid, it increases money supply. Repayment increases money supply. So when you repay the money of the public, it increases money supply. It's an expansionary policy. It is an expansionary policy. Now, another tool, another tool is budget. Budget. Sir, how can budget be a tool? You discussed in the last class, in fact, about budget, sir. So how can budget be a tool to expand or contract money? I will explain. Expansionary. Expansionary increases money supply. How so? What kind of budget will the government maintain? Deficit budget. You know what is deficit budget? Dear students, it's a budget where expenditure is, where government expenditure is greater than government receipts. Where government expenditure is greater than government receipts. Government spends more money than it receives. Okay. So during deficit budget, expansionary policy is pursued. During deficit budget, expansionary policy is pursued. Now, if there is a surplus budget, if there is a surplus budget, what will happen? Students, if surplus budget is there, it means the receipts are greater than the expenditure. It means the receipts are greater than the expenditure. When the receipts are greater than the expenditure, that means government is receiving more money than it is spending. Government is receiving more money than it is spending. In that case, it is a contractionary policy. You know why? Because government is reducing money with the public. It has 1,000, but it is spending only 200 or 700, whatever it is, lesser than 1,000. Okay. Now, what Institute has explained us in the further points is that how can long run growth take place via fiscal policy? Because we discussed now, fiscal policy has how many objectives? 4. If you forgot it, then I will remind it to you. Growth, equity, stability. Growth, equity, stability. Yes or no, everyone? This is what is written here. See, growth, equity, stability, and employment. So now what we are studying, how to achieve each goal using the fiscal policy instruments. Okay. So each goal we have studied. Now, how to achieve growth via fiscal policy, via fiscal policy. How will you ensure economic growth? Right. So here it goes. Number one is students, supply side investments. Supply side investments. You know why? Because if the country invests in infrastructure, education and healthcare, will growth not occur? Sir, why? Because when these people get better infrastructure, their productivity will improve. Education, people will be more educated, and a country with more educated people will have more income. Healthcare, better health means better ability to work. All this will result in finally achieving what? Economic growth. All this will finally help in achieving economic growth. Got it, sir. Right now, then there could be another thing that is called tax incentive for innovation and investment. What could be tax incentive for innovation and investment? Tax incentives could be given for innovation and investment. I will explain. This China had done. China had done. Shanghai and all these places, they declare it as a separate zone. Separate zone. They declare a particular area, okay, as a particular tax-free zone. So any business who is going to operate in this underdeveloped area, they are going to get tax holiday. 7 years, 10 years, whatever it is. Now businesses see an opportunity here. Anyone who brings in any technology here will get loan without any interest from the government. People will want to take risk. Okay, let's innovate and see what we can make out of it. Yes or no? Suppose the government, I'll give you an example. Suppose one of the underdeveloped areas in our country, India, is, let's say, Bihar, for example. Bihar. Bihar. Now, in this Bihar, if the government sets up, makes a scheme that whoever brings in factories will get 10-year tax free. Sir, so how is the government benefited here? Class, you are not understanding. If there is an underdeveloped city or a state in our country, and if businesses start pouring in, if businesses start pouring in money, first of all, that area, the infrastructure of that area will be improved. Living conditions of the people will improve. People will get jobs. When all this happens, growth will naturally take place. And this is what we are studying, how to achieve growth. Because when people are able to educate their children, one generation, if you educate, you take care of the next 7 to 8 generations. And market failures can also be corrected through externalities. For example, market failure, you all know, I did it in unit 2. Market failure is a situation. Market failure is a situation when there is less than optimum allocation of resources, meaning resources are not being used fully, efficiently, and in a proper manner. That is called market failure. Now you say, are there enough free hospitals and educational institutes in our country? No. So in terms of education and healthcare, there is a market failure. Market has failed to provide these things in quality at competitive prices. So when government sets up infrastructure, when government sets up low cost hospitals, or government sets up any such thing, they are basically pouring in an opportunity for growth. Do you understand, class, what we are doing? We discussed 4 objectives, na? So how to achieve these 4 objectives using fiscal policy, we are studying. How to achieve these 4 objectives using fiscal policy, we are studying that. Okay, sir. Next is, class, how to reduce inequalities. It's an interesting one. Pay attention, everybody. How to reduce inequality. Because if you all remember, reducing inequalities is also an objective out of the 4. One was employment, stability, growth, and inequality reduction. So one way could be progressive taxation. You make the rich pay more taxes. You make the rich pay more taxes. Everybody, when you make the rich people pay more, everyone, when you make the rich people pay more, you benefit the poor. I have already explained progressive taxation. I don't think I need to. Unless a student says that, okay, sir, explain again. Acha, students, I will wait for 2 to 3 minutes and ask you all, I will, before explaining further, is so far all good? Everything is clear? Yes or no, everybody? Before moving forward, please confirm, everyone. Then only I will move forward. Awaiting confirmation from everybody. Okay. Any help needed, please go ahead and ask. I don't see any doubts here. I don't see any doubts here. So no problem. No doubts. Let's move forward then. No doubts. Let's move forward then. So progressive taxation is where you make the rich people pay more taxes. All right, sir. Then there is a concept of targeted expenditure. What is it, sir? Targeted expenditure. Targeted expenditure means if for reducing inequality, I will give you an example of a targeted expenditure. You know what used to happen Obviously, government was offering free education in certain government schools, but the parents of the poor students would not send them to school, would not send them to school. They did not send them to school. Now, when they did not send them to school, what now listen to the targeted expenditure. Government started organizing midday meals in schools. Midday meals means any student who comes to school will get meal in the school only, lunch in the school only. Are you understanding what I'm saying? This way, parents thought two things that okay, we are poor, at least our child will eat if they go to the school. And in doing so, so imagine their main focus was not education. When you are hungry, you don't think about morals, you think about what you need, food. So parents used to send them only for food. Education was just a side benefit. When you all used to go to school, maybe some of the schools used to offer lunch, yes or no? Like in Calcutta, we have this school, Heritage. There from morning to evening students stay, so they offer lunch. It's a very expensive school. But the students who go there, what is their main purpose? Lunch. Education. This is targeted expenditure. Now students. Another problem was certain women in the rural households. Today in India, they need money for their basic necessities. So government launched the scheme only for the poor. Just a moment. So only for the poor, government launched a scheme that offered the poor what, sir? That offered the poor what? What did they offer the poor? In this process, they offered the poor, pay attention, jobs. In Manrega, they offer the people jobs. Another targeted expenditure. So there are different targeted expenditures. Manrega, for the women that I was saying, they were getting the Annapurna scheme. Now also some scheme is going on where the women are getting 2,000 or 3,000. Just the lower means not everybody is getting. And I also agree not everyone should get. People who are unable to afford the basic necessities, those who are forced to stay by their circumstances in the huts and villages, they're getting 3,000 per month. Now maybe 3,000 per month is not enough, but at least their medical expenses, some very important need is being satisfied. Food, it's a big help for them. And finally, indirect taxes are designed to be equitable. Yes, sir, this is interesting. A new concept you explained now. Direct taxes are made progressive. But how can indirect taxes be progressive? Anyone in the chat you want to write? Do you know direct taxes can be progressive? But do you know indirect taxes can also be progressive? How can direct tax be progressive? As the income increases, the tax rate increases. That is direct tax being progressive. But isn't it surprising how indirect tax can be progressive? Let me explain. In the simple language, you make indirect taxes progressive by imposing no tax. Yes, our friend Deepak Gautam is the first one and the only student to have approached it correct logically. No tax on necessities because it is consumed by the rich and the poor both. No tax on the commodities that are consumed largely by the poor. Suppose Now suppose there is some luxury car. Suppose there is some luxury car, Audi, Range Rover, and BMW and whatnot. If all these are there, class, if all these are there, then what happens? If all these are there, then what happens? Tell me. Agreed. I totally agree. When all these are there, Audi, all this BMW and so on and so forth, when everything is there, charge them at high rate of tax, highest rate of tax, 28%. This way, what will happen? See, the rich who is buying a 1 crore car, they won't care if they pay 1 crore 28 lakhs for it. They are going to get it. This is how you make indirect taxes progressive. By imposing higher GST, higher GST on those commodities which are consumed largely by the rich, and lower or no tax on the goods that are consumed by the middle class or the poor. Now, students, two really interesting concepts I'm going to teach you all if you all are ready. In limitations of fiscal policy, very important lags. Institute in the last 2-3 attempts have given question from this. So I will take you to the institute mat itself to explain that. The lags I wanted to explain using ICAI module only, though I have a ready-made notes for it. Very important. You should mark it, students. Institute gives questions every one attempt or the other. Very important. Now, what are we studying? Class, what we are going to study here is the demerits of fiscal policy, the limitations of fiscal policy. If you all are ready, I will teach you. Yes, sir, ready. See everybody. There are 4 types of lags: recognition lag, decision lag, implementation lag, and impact lag. Impact lag. Recognition, decision, implementation, and impact lag. What is recognition lag? What are we studying? भूलिए नहीं, हम लोग क्या पढ़ रहे हैं? हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं फिस्कल पॉलिसी के साथ प्रॉब्लम्स क्या है. What are the problems with fiscal policy? There are 4 types of problems, dear students. Number 1 is recognition lag. Recognition lag means that, let's say, in economy inflation is the condition, or in economy recession is the condition that is prevailing. Okay, suppose inflation is the prevailing condition or recession is the prevailing condition in the economy. Okay, now my lovely friends, recognition lag is the failure by the government. Recognition lag is the failure by the government to realize any need for a policy change. To realize any need for a policy change. The economy is a complex phenomena, and state of the macroeconomic variables is usually not easily comprehensible. There is difficulty in collecting accurate and timely data. There is difficulty in collecting accurate and timely data. There may be delay on the part of the government to recognize the need for a policy change. There may be delay on the part of government to recognize the need for a policy change. You have failed to recognize that a policy change is needed. You have failed to realize that. That is recognition lag. कुछ बदलाव का जरूरत है. You have failed to realize that. Suppose students, let me explain an analogy for recognition lag. Students, You are eating a lot of junk food every day, every single day. Your stomach is paining. You have acidity and whatnot. But still you are consuming the junk food. It means your failure to recognize that you need to change your habits. Just like that, recognition lag is the failure of the government to realize that the economy is suffering from a problem and the medicine needs to be administered. Hello everyone, did you understand, students? Everybody, please confirm. I'm waiting. Only then I'll explain the next concept after recognition lag. Yes, sir. I have ready in my notes, but I wanted you to see this because I am almost certain that institute will give question from here. If they don't, if they don't, but okay. Chalo. Let's go ahead, class. Having said recognition lag, having set aside recognition lag, my dear students, now we study what? Decision lag. What do I teach you? Decision lag. Okay. So suppose, again, analogically, I will explain first. I told you about your stomach pain and all. So your stomach was paining. Finally, finally, it was realized that now you need to start your medicines. Decision lag is, decision lag is that you realized you had a problem. You realized you had a problem. You recognized, means there was no recognition lag. But the decision to go to a doctor was taken much later. Problem was recognized. You knew that there is something wrong. But the decision to take action, that is to go to a doctor, you took that decision much later. Delay in decision making. Recognition lag is delay in identifying the problem. First, you could not understand only that there is a problem with you. In decision lag, you have realized you had a problem. You have a problem, but you are delaying the decision making. So it often happens with government also, that government realizes that okay, we are witnessing inflation in the economy, but the decision to counter that inflation, government does not take or takes much later on. My dear students, that's decision lag. That's decision lag, dear students. Understood or not understood? Decision lag, understood or not understood? Right, sir, understood, sir. Sir, what is implementation lag? Third is implementation lag. What is implementation lag? Implementation lag means that you realized you have a problem. You took the decision to go to a doctor, but you are going to the doctor after a month of taking that decision. It means you realized you have stomach pain. You recognized the problem. How do you treat it? By going to a doctor. You decided you will go to a doctor. But actually, when it came to implementation, that is actually going to a doctor, you did that much later. That is implementation lag. So here, government has realized the economy is suffering from a problem. Government has taken the decision of what to do, but the on-ground implementation of such a decision, was done much later on. On-ground implementation of such decision was done much later on. Was done much later on. That is implementation lag. Implementation lag. Finally, we have impact lag. What is impact lag? So you decided that you have a problem. You understood you have a problem. You recognize that. You took the decision to go to a doctor. You went to a doctor on time, but the medicine that the doctor gave you took some time to work. But the medicine that the doctor gave you, will it work immediately? You took the first dose. Now you are expecting, okay, now I should be all okay. Does it work that way? No, it does not, sir. So the impact of that medicine was perceived much later on. That is impact lag. That is impact lag. Oh, sir, understood, sir. So government realized the problem. Government took the decision. Government implemented it on time. But whatever action the government took, suppose it was inflation. So government planned to introduce progressive taxes. But the impact of such progressive taxes will be felt after a year or so. That is impact lag. That is the impact of the government decision takes time to show results. Students, these 4 types of lags were very important. That's why I had to migrate to the institute's material to explain that. Though it was ready-made with me as well. For another concept, I will take you to the institute material, but I hope the lag is, absolutely perfectly clear. So recognition, decision, implementation, and impact lag. Okay. Now, now, difficulty in adjusting committed expenditures. Government did not disincentives, right? What is disincentives? Students, we had discussed it also in a topic that equity and efficiency conflict, deadweight loss in the first unit. If you have forgotten, let it be. I will explain the disincentives again. If you are taxing the rich more for whatever reasons, okay, do you think they will feel encouraged or they will be discouraged? They will be discouraged. They will feel that why do I need to work so much? Why should I work so much? If I have to pay higher tax, they will feel that for their hard work, they are being penalized. So either they will reduce their working or they will shift their working to some other country where their efforts are being equally rewarded. Maybe Dubai or so on and so forth. Another problem is deficit financing. Sir, what is deficit financing? As an economics students, you need to know, everyone. Deficit financing means printing currency notes. Deficit financing means printing currency notes. Now, very important question, a very important MCQ from here is deficit financing causes what? A very important question here is, students, deficit financing causes what? Everyone, remember this. Deficit financing causes inflation. You will ask me, sir, how? First of all, you understood deficit financing means printing of currency notes. Now, when a lot of currency notes are being printed, dear students, everybody has money because these notes are being printed. So these are not in the banks. These are with the public. Public is going to demand things for these notes. Their demand increases and the same old problem is witnessed. Same old problem is witnessed. Class. Next is, my dear students, next is the crowding out effect. What is the next thing, class? The crowding out effect. The crowding out effect. What is the crowding out effect? Crowding out effect, actually, I help you remember this in a much better way. Just you don't write crowding out, you remember the actual name is crowding out, But for explaining, I tell the students, think it like this: kicking out. Don't write kicking out in exam. I mean, there is no such term called kicking out in economics. Crowding out is the correct thing. See, what happens? Students, I told you what is fiscal policy. Policy of the government that deals with one of these three things. Government revenue, that is taxes of the government. Government expenditure, that is expenditure of the government. And finally, government borrowings. So in this borrowings thing, suppose government starts borrowing. Now if government starts borrowing from the public, interest rate on loan rises. Why? Why interest rate on loan rises? Because banks or the people have limited amount of money only. Okay. Now this money in the form of loans, who is taking up? The government. But who also does business in the economy? Private sector. So because of the government taking so much loan, the rate of interest that the private sectors have to pay, the rate of interest for the private sectors is also rising. The rate of interest for the private sector is also rising. Now class, when the rate of interest for the private sector rises, my lovely friends, when the rate of interest for the private sector rises, they are unable to borrow at such high rate of interest. Who caused this high rate of interest? Government. Why? Because the limited amount of money that was available in the economy, government started borrowing that. Government started borrowing that. The limited amount of money that was available in the economy, the government started borrowing that. So when the government started borrowing that, limited amount of money, okay, what was the problem? The problem was that the money available for the private sector became costly. And when the money became costly, private sector was discouraged for taking loans. When private sector is discouraged from taking loans, the investment in the economy will rise or fall? Fall. Private sector has been kicked out. Now you understand what is crowding out effect. Class, did you understand what is crowding out effect? See, these are economic terms that are often used and you cannot expect teacher to explain every time. Now not clear, ask me. Is it clear everybody? I will explain once again in Hindi, no problem, because students are saying to do that. But apart from that, is it clear everybody in the chat box, please? Come on, everyone. Once again, Dikshit is saying once again, sir. Okay. Okay. I will explain that both in English and in Hindi. No worries. First in English, okay? Pay attention. Students, if government increases its borrowings, if government increases its borrowings, then the money becomes costly. Money becomes costly means interest rate rises because of government borrowings. Since interest rate rises because of government borrowings, private sector's loan is reduced. You know why? Because private sector is unable to afford high rates of interest on loan. So private sector's loan taking capacity is reduced. When private sector is taking lesser loans, class, when private sector is taking lesser loans, what happens? What happens, class? When private sector takes lesser loans, the investment of the private sector goes down. This is called crowding out of private sector. See, because of higher government borrowings and higher government investments, private sector has been kicked out. That is crowding out. अब एक बारी हिंदी में बता देता हूं. जब गवर्नमेंट अपनी बोरोइंग्स को बढ़ाती है, जब गवर्नमेंट अपनी बोरोइंग्स को बढ़ाती है, तो गवर्नमेंट को अपनी बोरोइंग्स को बढ़ाने की वजह से पैसे कॉस्टली हो गए, पैसे कॉस्टली हो गए, चीजों का इंटरेस्ट रेट क्या क्या हो गया, ऊपर चला गया। अब बच्चे जब चीजों का इंटरेस्ट रेट ऊपर चला गया, तो जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर का लोन है वो क्या हो गया, कम हो गया। प्राइवेट सेक्टर कम लोन लेने लग गए, प्राइवेट सेक्टर क्या करने लगे, कम लोन लेने लग गए। और जब प्राइवेट सेक्टर ने कम लोन लेना शुरू कर दिया, तो इन्वेस्टमेंट इकोनॉमी में कम हो गया। मतलब एक तरीके से गवर्नमेंट की बोरोइंग्स की जिद की वजह से प्राइवेट सेक्टर को इकोनॉमी से बाहर कर दिया गया। इस प्रक्रिया को क्राउडिंग आउट कहते हैं। अंडरस्टूड? आई होप स्टूडेंट्स, आई होप एवरीबडी इज क्लियर सो फार। एवरीवन, yes or no? Of course, we are going to practice MCQs today, but first, let's summarize what has been done. Okay, let's summarize. For summary, students, for summary, I have prepared my own notes in a more designed way. So let me explain you using that design. All right, please pay attention, everyone. Just a minute. Okay. So first of all, the unit is fiscal policy. It's entire, the next 30 minutes will be entire summary. So be ready to understand. But sir, is this the chapter? Yes. Only this much is the unit. First, let me summarize. Then, of course, I have prepared MCQs for you. We are going to definitely be solving that. Okay, no worries. So, what is fiscal policy? Deliberate use of, deliberate use of, deliberate means intentional use of government spending, of government taxation, and government borrowings to influence the level of economic activity in the economy. So whatever economic activity is taking place in the economy, government is trying to counter that, and fiscal policy is an attempt made in that direction. Deliberate use of government spending, taxation, and borrowing to influence economic activity in the economy. Understood? Not understood? Right, sir? Understood, sir. Right, sir? Understood, sir. It refers to the use of government budgetary tools. I told you, no, tax, government expenditure, and public debt all are to influence what? To influence demand, growth, employment, stability, and equality of distribution. We have discussed that already. Now, there are different people with different view. Before 1930s, that is classical view. So anything that is before Keynes is called classical. Anything that is after Keynes or with Keynes is neoclassical or Keynesian. Okay, now classical view was economy self-correcting. It means there is no need of government interference. Let's say the classical economist said that suppose there is inflation in the economy, or suppose there is recession in the economy, whatever is there अपने आप ठीक हो जाएगा. Economy self-correcting. There is no need of government intervention. Laissez-faire means no government intervention is needed to correct any sort of what do you say, that inflation or deflation. There is nothing needed to be done. They say, the classical view says, market forces will ensure full employment. Market forces will ensure full employment. Market forces will ensure full employment. It means the market is automatically going to take care that everything goes okay. Sometimes it happens na that you are sad. Your friends tell you, हाँ सब अपने आप ठीक हो जाएगा. Everything will get well on its own. And sometimes it does. That is what the classical view was. सब ठीक हो जाएगा अपने आप. Everything will get better on its own. No need of government to participate. And they said there should always be a balanced budget. They did not propagate any kind of, what do you say, deficit budget that we see nowadays, the most common type, or the surplus budget that you see. There was always what kind of budget? Balanced budget. Balanced budget. After 1930s, Great Depression exposed failure of classical theory. So classical theory failed. Because during the Great Depression, everything was not self-adjusting. सब कुछ अपने आप ठीक नहीं हो रहा था during the Great Depression. Government had to interfere. And as soon as the government had to interfere, the classical economists' point was proved worthless because they said there was no need of interference, but there was actually need of interference to do everything correct. Keynes held the view, this you would have studied it in your chapter, business cycles as well. That's chapter number 5. In chapter number 5, this is written under causes of business cycles, internal causes, point number 1. It is written in your ICAI module in chapter business cycles. Keynesian view is insufficient demand will cause unemployment. Keynesian view is insufficient demand will cause unemployment. When the demand is insufficient, then you will see unemployment. Keynes told that yes, government interference is necessary through different fiscal policy measures. Nothing will get well on its own. And finally, increase in government expenditure can raise employment and output. Increase in government expenditure can raise employment and output. Increase in government expenditure can raise employment and output. Objectives of fiscal policy you have already studied, so I'm not interested anymore. You just see full employment, price stability, economic growth, and equitable distribution of income and wealth. Okay, these are the objectives. Then what is the GDP equation? All of you know this. You would have studied it in your national income, right? GDP is C plus I plus G plus X minus M or net exports. Okay. What happens to GDP in expansionary and contractionary fiscal policy? What happens to GDP? Okay. See, suppose government increases expenditure, GDP will rise. Suppose government reduces expenditure, GDP is going to fall. Suppose investment rises, GDP is going to rise. Suppose investment expenditure falls, GDP is going to fall. Then, class, you have your types of fiscal policy, right? This is just the summary because main thing we have studied using text only, text data, right? Types of fiscal policy. Students, on one type, you have your expansionary policy. When is expansionary policy undertaken? During recession. When there is low aggregate demand. When there is low aggregate demand. Everything is low, 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 low. This is what is written. When economy is facing recession, low demand, low output, and high unemployment. During that time, you pursue expansionary fiscal policy. Here, there can be increase in government expenditure. There can be decrease in taxes. Okay. So more spending on public works. Increase in government expenditure. It will create employment and incomes will increase, demand and output will rise. See construction workers here in the picture. That is more expenditure of the government is being shown, right? Another expansionary fiscal policy could be decrease in taxes. See, we are talking about expansionary. So when we talk about expansionary, we will talk about anything that increases money in the hands of public. When government increases expenditure, public gets the money from the government. Tax is reduced, public is left with more money in their hands to, undertake whatever decision making they need to. So to decrease decrease in taxes cause income tax to fall. I mean, income tax fall, corporate tax fall, disposable income will rise. Disposable income rise, consumption will rise, investment will rise, and demand will go up. Because during recession, you want to correct the economy by making the demand go up. Then class, We have contractionary fiscal policy for inflation. Why contractionary and what is contractionary? When in economy there is excess demand, you need to reduce the money with the public. You need to reduce the demand of the public. You need to reduce the spending by the public. To achieve that, contractionary fiscal policy is being pursued. Okay? Now, in contractionary policy, there are two things. One is decrease in government expenditure. The other thing is increase in taxes. So in decrease in expenditure, there should be cutting down of non-essential expenditures. When you are talking about contraction, government should cut down non-essential expenditures. Unnecessary fertilizer subsidy, cut down. Income should be reduced of the people, and therefore demand will reduce, inflation pressure will go down. And what happens with increase in taxes? When taxes are increased, disposable income goes down. So consumption falls, investment falls, and thus demand falls. Because don't forget, during inflation, you don't want demand to rise any further. My dear students, during inflation, you don't want demand to rise any further. You want demand to go down. Next. This is what we have already studied. Important points, very important points, students, from MCQ perspective. When does fiscal policy work best? The fiscal policy works best when economy is not at full employment. You know why? Because if everybody is at full employment, any changes you do will lead to people losing their jobs. So you should not touch that ideal position. You should not be touching that ideal position. Understood? Next, at full employment, expansionary policy may only cause inflation. At full employment, expansionary policy will only cause what? Inflation only. Proper timing of fiscal policy is very important. That is given here. No worries about that. Budget. We already know there are different kinds of budget, students, right? Balanced budget, where expenditure is equals to receipts, surplus, receipts greater than expenditure, deficit greater than, एक minute, just a minute, expenditure greater than receipts. Deficit budget is pursued when we want to pursue expansionary fiscal policy. And surplus budget is what you see when you follow what kind of fiscal policy? Contractionary fiscal policy. Game over. Let's head to MCQs now. Students, are we ready, everybody? Are we ready for the MCQ discussion, class? I'm just waiting for your response. Let's go, everyone. Students, there are many students, so I need response from all. Please confirm whenever you are ready. So let's attack finally. Students, let's finally attack. Fiscal policy refers to what? Answer me before I try to, contribute anything. I want your answer, please. And also, since we are starting now, Mark how many correct answers you gave. Okay, self marks on it. You could say it's a test or a quiz, whatever you want. Give yourself marks on it. Every correct question 1, every question you don't want to attempt 0, and every question you make a mistake minus 0.25. The exact mark replica that you get, and no need to copy the entire thing. Just suppose your answer is 11A, just write 11A. Okay, so let's see. Fiscal policy refers to changes in interest rates, government's use of spending, taxation, and borrowing. It is more inclusive definition. So 11B is the correct. If you got it correct, write down +1 for you. Next question. I'm waiting. I'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes. No worries. So I think you would have thought of the answer. It's already 1 minute. My timer was on. So students, expansionary fiscal policy means you want people to have more money. So if you increase tax, they will have lesser money. It's not the answer. Decrease in tax and increase in spending. If this was your answer, you can reward yourself 1 mark with it. Okay. What is contractional fiscal policy used to do? Again, I'll wait for 1 minute. Only then I will answer. Before that, I won't contribute anything. See, contractionary fiscal policy, pay attention class, is used to. Here we are wanting to reduce the money with the public. So it is used to promote export, boost GDP, or control inflation. I think so. It controls inflation. It controls inflation. I told you, expansionary and contractionary are used to counter the situations of, recession and inflation accordingly. So third question was this. Depending upon how much you scored, allow yourself marks +1, -0.25, etc. Keynes advocated that government need to increase its spending to tackle what? Why will government increase its spending? To tackle what? Think of your answer. Don't see what others are answering. So Keynes advocated increased government spending to tackle what? Recession and unemployment. Recession and unemployment. To tackle recession and unemployment. Which is not an instrument. Fifth one. I'll wait for a minute again. Which one of them is not an instrument of fiscal policy? Be cautious, students. Many of you make mistakes here. In the 15th one. I'm waiting, no problem. which is not an instrument of fiscal policy, taxation, interest rate, expenditure, or public debt. Interest rate. Interest rate. So 5 questions have been done. Which of the following shows the crowding out effect? So a good question. Crowding out effect means basically kicking out. Who is kicked out? Generally the private sector is kicked out. Which of the following shows the crowding out effect? Government borrowings reducing funds available for private sector, because government is borrowing more money. So government borrowings increases. So money available with the banks and the public is falling. So the interest rate rises. Private sector takes lesser loans. So investment falls of private sector. That is crowding out effect. During inflation. So 16th question has been done class successfully. Think carefully class. Yes. So during inflation, what can happen? Dear students, inflation hai. So we want to reduce money with the public. You raise tax and you spend little money on the public. Cut down public expenditure. Raise taxes and cut down public expenditure. You raise taxes and cut down public expenditure. Which of the following reduces income inequality? Which of the following reduces income inequality? Class, tell me, which of them will reduce income inequality? Flat tax system, public expenditure on luxury goods, progressive taxation and targeted subsidies, or tax holidays for MNCs. Flat tax system, if you students are confused, it is basically, suppose your income is 5 lakh, you pay 10% tax. Your income is 10 lakh, still you pay 10% tax. 50 lakh, still you pay 10% tax. Same tax rate, no matter what. Okay, same tax rate, no matter what. So if anybody was worried about that, now you know. Here it goes. Which of the following reduces income inequality? Flat tax, public expenditure on luxury goods, progressive taxation and targeted subsidies, or tax holidays for MNCs. Of course, students, to reduce income inequality, you will need to do progressive taxation. You need to tax the rich at higher rates and help the money and use that money to help the poor. One major problem of fiscal policy is very important. Very important. One major limitation of fiscal policy. So here I will answer it, students. One major limitation That view C of fiscal policies, absence of borrowing options, difficulty in cutting government salaries, implementation lag, and volatility of currency. Students, we had studied this implementation lag. ये चार बाकी तीनों तो आपको कुछ पता भी नहीं होगा कि क्या है. So naturally, what seems the most familiar will be the answer. Class, which policy is used when economy operates below full employment? Which pol oh, just a second, students. There is apparently some change in the pattern of this. Yes, we are back to this. Which policy is used when economy operates below full employment? Below full employment means that not everybody is getting job. Everybody who wants job is not getting job. You want to ensure that everybody who wants jobs gets jobs. So what will you do? You will pursue expansionary fiscal policy. You know why? Because when everybody, if there is less employment, you want to increase employment. You want to create jobs. How do you create jobs? When you create investment. How does investment arise? When there is more money supply, then only it will be invested. Students, now tell me your marks. How much did you score out of 10, everybody? That will give a good idea of how well this unit has gone for you. I'm waiting. I'm waiting in the chat box, class. I am waiting for your response in the chat box, everyone. Sir 9. Samarth is saying Sir 9. Vishnu is saying 10. Vishnu is saying 10. Okay, Vishnu. So see, in short, if any of you have scored above 7, that means you are listening. आप lecture सुन रहे हो. If not, then I think you need to read the book and see this lecture again. If you have scored 7 or above, then it's okay. No need to worry. One or two minute mistakes are bound to occur. Chalo. It's not enough, class. We are going to practice some more. Now, we are going to practice some more questions. These were the questions I had prepared. Some institutes questions also we must practice so that the full-fledged discussion is over. Okay. Let's start, sir. So what is fiscal policy referring to, class? It is the use of government spending, taxation, and borrowing to influence the level of economic activity. That's the correct answer. Use of government spending, taxation, and borrowing to influence economic activity. Next, if real GDP is continuously declining, so GDP, as we understand, is falling, and the rate of unemployment is increasing. So unemployment is increasing. GDP is falling, unemployment is increasing. What should the appropriate policy be? GDP is falling, unemployment is rising. What should the appropriate policy be? Correct, sir. Appropriate policy should be to decrease taxes and increase government spending. Let me explain that. See, rate of unemployment has gone up. So if unemployment has gone up, you need to fight unemployment. How do you fight unemployment? Creating more jobs. How do you create more jobs? When you leave people with more money so that they can invest or they can save. So what the government does is Less taxes. Less taxes results in private sector having more money for investment. Their purchasing power or investing power rises, and more of government expenditure, so that there is more money in the hands of public, and there and also more money in the hands of the public. And apart from that, government spending, government undertaking a new venture will automatically create more jobs for the public. Third one is a good question. Third one is a good one. Read it first, then I will contribute anything to the discussion. It will take 1 minute to read. Only those who have truly understood this chapter will answer this. So, class, which of the following are likely to occur when the economy is in an expansionary phase of a business cycle? Let's see, everyone. If it is expansionary, unemployment rate will not rise. Rather, there will be unemployment rate falling. Less people will be unemployed. So this is okay. Yes, inflation will rise because money supply is rising. So demand for things will rise. Expansionary means money supply is rising. So people's demand will rise. And when there is demand, their inflation will also rise. Deflation, no. Yes. And also one more thing is going to occur. Increasing tax revenue for the government. Why tax revenue will increase? Because it is an expansionary phase. So businesses will invest. They will make money. And since they will be making money, they will be paying more taxes. More money supply means more income. More income means more taxes. Do I really need to explain that? BCF most likely to occur. During recession, the fiscal policy of the government should be directed towards. During recession, what is the fiscal policy directed towards? During recession, government should increase tax or reduce tax. Yes, government should reduce tax. It is recession. Come on, friends. Recession means there is low demand already. You don't want to create the problem further. To solve it, you reduce tax so that people are left with more money. Something the government is trying now, or that had happened during the COVID as well. Now it's an interesting question. According to Keynesian economics institute, if they want, they can just change the question from Keynesian to classical, and the whole answer will change. So remember which phase or which time is being discussed in the question. I'll wait for a minute. According to Keynesian economics, when we have inflation, an effective fiscal policy, an effective fiscal policy should not include, according to Keynesian economics, when we have inflation, an effective fiscal policy should not include what? Inflation is to contract. Inflation is to contract. Yes, to if you want to contract, you increase taxes. That is okay. They're asking which should not be done. Decrease demand. That is okay. But increasing government purchases is wrong. You know why? Because if government increases expenditure, it will be leaving more money in the hands of the public. So this is the wrong answer, and overall it is the right answer. Okay? Okay. Keynesian economists, class, Keynesian economists believe that fiscal policy can have powerful effects in aggregate in altering demand, output, and employment. Yes, when the economy is operating at less than full employment level and when there is a need to offer stimulus to demand, fiscal policy is of great use. Yes or no? Yes. Yes. So both are correct. Third one, you see, wages are flexible and business fluctuation will be automatically adjusted. This is Keynesian or classical? Classical. Classical said सब अपने आप ठीक हो जाए. So had the institute changed it from Keynesian to classical, my option from D would be option C. So be very cautious of that. Question number 7 and 8, I want you all to see and solve in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Which of the following may ensure a decrease in aggregate demand during inflation? Which of the following may ensure an decrease in aggregate demand during inflation? Inflation, you want demand to fall. So pay attention, class. Decrease in all types of spending and increase in taxes. Yes. First one is correct. I don't need to see the second option. Recession is characterized by, of course, recession means a situation where students unemployment is rising, income of the people are falling, prices are falling, and employment is rising. This is wrong. Prices are falling, okay, but employment is rising. I don't agree. Unemployment is falling. It is wrong. In fact, unemployment is rising. Recession is a very bad time. Declining real income and rising unemployment is the correct answer. Which one of the following is an example of fiscal policy? So what is an example of fiscal policy? A tax cut aimed at increasing the disposable income and spending, a reduction in government expenditure to contain inflation, an increase in taxes and decrease in government expenditure to control inflation, or all of these? These are the questions. So which of the following is an example of fiscal policy? A tax cut aimed at increasing the disposable income and spending, a reduction in government expenditure to control inflation, and an increase in taxes and decrease in government expenditure to control inflation. So all of them are there because government expenditure, taxation, taxation. So all these are fiscal policy. So all these are examples of fiscal policy instruments. Number 10. Which of the following would illustrate a recognition lag? Class, what say? Which of the following is a recognition lag? Recognition means you fail to identify any need only for a change. C. To identify the appropriate policy, that is decision lag. Time required to pass a legislation. Again, implementation lag. Time required to identify the need for a change. Recognition lag. आपको बदलाव का जरूरत है, you realize it later, much later. So that's naturally recognition lag is your answer. An expansionary fiscal policy. Class, an expansionary fiscal policy, taking everything else constant, would in short run have the effect of what? An effect, an expansionary fiscal policy, taking everything else constant, would in the short run have an effect of a large increase in GDP and a smaller increase in price. You know why? Because price changes with minimal amount, but quantity demanded changes so much that there is a large increase in GDP. Okay. So relatively large increase in GDP and a smaller increase in price. That's the correct answer. Yes. Question number 12. Which statement is correct about crowding out? Okay, I'll wait. I'll wait for a minute or two. I will wait for a minute. Let's see. Which statement is correct about crowding out? Let's see, class. A decline in private spending may be partially or completely offset by the expansion of demand resulting from increase in government expenditure. So see, they are asking which of the following statement is correct. Class, a decline in private spending may be partially or completely offset by the expansion of demand. Yes, government expenditure increases demand, so private spending may be worthless. Next. Crowding out effect is the negative effect fiscal policy may generate when money from private sector is crowded out. Yes, that's correct. Next, when spending by the government increases, government spending would be crowded out. Wrong. Private spending would be crowded out. Private investments, especially the ones which are interest sensitive, will be reduced if interest rate rises due to spending by the government. That's correct. C is the correct answer. And if you all thought C, then you are in the correct path. Okay, everyone. Let's head to the 13th and the 14th question, class. Let's solve the next two questions. Which of the following policies is likely to shift the demand to the right? Demand to the right means anything that increases the demand. Does increase in spending increase demand? Yes. Does reduction in taxes increase demand? Yes. A tax cut along with increase in expenditure, does it increase demand? Yes. Because demand to the right means they are indirectly saying for because of which demand rises. What will cause the demand to rise? How the demand rises? That's the correct question. What caused the demand to rise? So all the above causes the demand to rise. All the above. Identify the incorrect statement. Identify the incorrect statement. A progressive tax system ensures economic growth with stability because it distributes the burden of taxes unequally. Identify the incorrect. A progressive tax system ensures economic growth with stability because it distributes the burden of tax unequally. Okay. A carefully planned policy, we are reading all the statements. A careful planned policy of public expenditure helps in redistributing from the rich to the poorer section. Yes, it is correct. Well, this statement is correct. I am not saying this is the answer. There are possible conflicts between different objectives of fiscal policy, such that a policy designed to achieve one goal may affect another. That is okay. An increase in government spending may possibly crowd out private spending. Yes. So A is the incorrect statement. A progressive direct tax ensures economic growth with stability. It does not ensure economic growth with stability. Who said it ensures that? Next question, number 15. Let's see, everyone. Fiscal policy is said to be contractionary. That's correct. Fiscal policy is contractionary when revenue is higher than spending. Correct. When the revenue is higher than spending, that is, budget is in surplus. Correct. Contractionary policy is government saving more. So that is okay because government wants to reduce money with the public. Other thing constant, a fiscal expansion will raise interest. Bilkul, it's correct. Because when government starts taking loans and spending more, private sector will be crowded out. During inflation, new taxes can be levied and rate of existing taxes are raised. Yes, inflation में आप क्या करोगे? You increase the tax to reduce the purchasing power of the people. Classical economists advocated fiscal policy. No, they said nothing is to be done. Classical economists said nothing doing, don't do anything. So it is absolutely incorrect. So statement 1, 2, and 3 are correct. 16th. While resorting to expansionary fiscal policy, government may possibly have a budget surplus as increased expenditure will bring more output and tax revenue. While resorting to expansionary fiscal policy, government may run into budget deficits because tax cuts reduce government income and expenditures exceed tax revenue in a given year. Yes. So the government may run into budget deficits. Why? Expansionary fiscal policy means government is spending more. So it may so happen that there is a budget deficit. Budget surplus is due to contractionary fiscal policy. Here they are saying deficit. So yes. Next. Question number 17, everybody. Let's try out, everybody. I'm waiting. Contractionary fiscal policy. So class, contractionary fiscal policy is designed to restrain the level of economic activity during an inflationary phase. That is the correct answer because you want to restrain, you want to reduce the consumption. So restrain means to slow down or to completely stop. Next, 18th question. When government spending is reduced, deliberately reduced to bring in stability. So when government spending is reduced to bring in stability, the government is resorting to what? Basically, the government is resorting to when spending is deliberately reduced to bring in stability, the government is resorting to contractionary fiscal policy. That is correct. That is correct. Reduction. Government is trying to limit aggregate demand to sustainable levels. Yes, government is trying to reduce aggregate demand also. So A and C both are correct. Because in contractionary policy, yes, we are trying to reduce the aggregate demand. What is the harm there? Increase in personal income taxes. I have not read anything further, but one thing I am sure, class, if the income taxes increase, disposable income is going to reduce. Demand will go down. I know this. Reduce disposable income leading to fall in consumption and aggregate demand. That's correct. This is correct. And is desirable during inflation or when there is excessive level of aggregate demand. Is desirable during inflation or when there is excessive level of aggregate demand. So both are correct. When the government resorts to deliberate fiscal policy, it may attempt to manipulate. So see, it may not attempt to manipulate. Expenditure, this is fiscal policy. Tax, fiscal policy. Government expenditure, fiscal policy. Rate of interest fluctuation is monetary policy. That is going to come in the upcoming chapters, not in this chapter. Rate of interest fluctuation, did I teach you? It's in monetary policy. In fiscal policy, there are three tools: expenditure, borrowings, and revenue, that is taxes. Which of the following fiscal remedy? Okay, there is another question. Class C carefully. First read it. Which of the following fiscal remedy would you advise when the economy is facing recession? Recession means you want people to consume more. Now they are saying fiscal remedy. Students, see, fiscal remedy. Government may cut interest rate. That is okay. But is it a fiscal or monetary policy? Monetary policy. The solution is correct, but it's not the fiscal remedy. It's the monetary policy remedy. Next, the government may cut down taxes. The government may cut down taxes to increase aggregate demand. The government may cut down taxes to increase aggregate demand. That is correct. Government may cut down taxes to increase aggregate demand. That is okay. So 21B is the correct answer. 22. While if while if government competes with private sector, while the government competes with private sector to borrow money for securing resources for expansionary fiscal policy, while if government competes with private sector to borrow money for securing resources for expansionary fiscal policy, it is likely. Acha, what is the consequence of expansionary fiscal policy? What is the consequence they are asking? Interest rates will go up. Yes, because you are punching in more money into the economy, so things will become expensive, right? It is likely that interest rate will go up and individuals will also not borrow. When interest rate is rising, private sector will also be reluctant. It is likely that interest rate will go up and desirable increase in aggregate demand may not be realized. So all the above are possible. And with this class, this chapter number 7 and unit number 4 is also finally complete. That's it for the day. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.